Hi, everyone. I'm Nicole Haba, the co-chair of the Texas Women Mortgage Bankers. And this year at TWMB, we're really leaning into mentorship, not just formal programs, but relationships that grow naturally or organically over time. So today I'm here with someone who means a lot to me, Amy White. What's special about our story is that it didn't start out as a formal mentorship relationship. Amy and I'm going to allow her to introduce herself shortly. Amy and I met on a panel for the TWMB a couple of years back, and our relationship just began, and it's grown over time. And I really want to give Amy and I the opportunity in this video to share how our story began. So, Amy, I'm going to allow you to introduce yourself.
Thanks, Nicole, and thanks for having me today. Yeah, first of all, TWMB has meant the world to me for many years. I mean, I ran and she spearheaded it, and that's where we met. And so it's exciting for us to meet today. And so I am, you know, TMBA strong, done it for many years, and so I'm just happy to be here with you today and talk about our story.
That's great. Thank you, Amy, for sharing that. One thing I can honestly say is that I know you're a vet in the industry. I'm still a baby. I've only been involved in TMBA for about 3 years. TWMB is well for me. I'm very passionate about it. I'm very honored that Rhiannon asked me to lean into this mentorship and try to get the ball rolling on it again, because mentorship for me, even before I joined the TMBA and got involved with the women's group, in all of my roles in my professional career, I've always encouraged mentorship. Find a mentor, find someone that you can share and talk things through with, because I think when you're talking and working with other people, it tends to ground your decisions, right? So we talked about how we met. We met on a panel. Rhiannon had asked that you and I sit on a panel for one of our women's events, and I didn't know you. I didn't know any of the panelists, and I was nervous. I was very nervous to get up on stage and to talk in front of all these women. And our topic at the time was navigating change. If you remember that.
I do.
So before I met you, I remember sitting in my room at the hotel and trying to think through what I was going to convey and how I was going to do that. And I wanted to feel intentional, and I wanted people to feel me, because no one really knew who I was. You, on the other hand, I was nervous. I was really nervous to be sitting next to you. I knew who you were, but I had never met you. So I didn't want to fan out and be like, oh, it's Amy. But I felt so honored to be sitting next to you. I just want to share that with you.
Thank you.
Yeah. So with that said, letting everyone know how we met. At what point, I want to roll into at what point did our relationship really start to grow? Um, Simply well, you embraced me first. I remember when they were miking us up and you introduced yourself, you gave me a hug, and then my nervousness just subsided. I wasn't nervous anymore because you were very warm, and so was our other panelist. I don't want to leave her out. She was just as well. But after we spoke on the panel, you came up to me afterwards and said you did a great job, and I'd like to get your number. Do you remember that?
I do. It was a crazy time
Yeah.
because, after you speak, everybody really wants to chat. And I love that. And that's where it
Yeah.
becomes real and just normal, and then all
Sure.
of a sudden you have these relationships. So yeah, I do remember that.
You remember that? Okay. Well, I will tell you, I went home that night and I told my husband, I was like, Amy White asked me for my phone. Amy asked me for my phone number. And I remember feeling how, special that was to me. And I wanted to reach out to you. And I think it might have been a week or so later that I reached out. And then you said, let's go to lunch. And we did that. And so during that lunch visit, do you remember it? Do you remember our lunch
I
visit?
remember where we
Okay.
were. I remember, yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, at that time, you were looking for employment, I believe.
Yeah.
And I think you had an opportunity on the table, and you were talking to me about it. And I felt, wow, we're having a mentor. Well, this feels like mentorship.
Yeah.
You're talking about an opportunity that you're thinking about taking. At that time, I'd learned that the department that I was running was closing down, and I was sharing with you how, devastating that was for me. And you were encouraging me to, just keep level, phase out your department, but think about what Nicole can do. What can Nicole do next? And so I took that information away and I started entertaining other ideas outside of, what I'd always done in my career.
Yeah.
So I wanted to tell you that you did give me that inspiration to think of what Nicole can do outside of, what I had been doing for 20 years in the mortgage space, and think about something else. And I did end up taking an opportunity outside of in the technical world. Okay. And I told you that, and you were like, good for you, good for you. So I appreciate that. And then you ended up landing in a position as well, somewhere. And so we were just kind of both, you know, doing our thing and keeping in touch along the way. Now I know we would meet at the TWMB events. You always spent time just coming up to me, talking to me, giving me a hug, giving me a warm welcome. You were always the same Amy, which I appreciate that. Your feeling, I'm just curious, in your feeling about mentorship, were you mentored as a young professional? Do you have those experiences?
I do, and it was very much within the TMBA.
Okay.
It, I had lots of great jobs, and I had, people I worked with, but it was actually in the TMBA, and I want to say like 2000. I mean, this was early on,
Okay.
and I just started getting involved, and I had somebody kind of grab a couple of ladies that had been in the business a while. It was more of a fixed relationship more
Okay.
than anything, but so it wasn't as kind of organic, like ours. It was just
Sure.
so easy, and we had this light panel. But it was a couple of ladies that had been in the industry, and I was told, don't lose touch with these ladies. They'll help you navigate through everything. And I think that's
Sure.
important as a young professional. I mean, even just understanding, what it means when you go to conferences. I mean, when you're
Gosh.
brand new and doing that, you kind of got to get a little feel about, how that works. So it
Yeah.
was more like that. So yeah, I have had people, mainly women in my life, that have been mentors to me. And I also, have a father who was in the business, and so I took some things from him as well. But yeah, but it was until I really got into TWMB and started really dealing with people that were kind of, like me, and had,
Sure.
these jobs within the industry, where I really started thinking about it more broadly. To me, it's just every day. I mean,
Sure.
I came up and gave you a hug and said, let's do this, probably because I was nervous a little bit too. You know, I
Wow.
mean, I mean, it's, getting up, and also it was a very vulnerable time for me.
It
I
was.
was caught up in a lot of layoffs, like a lot of people were during that time, and that's why they had this panel. And
Yep.
so it was nice to see people up there like you, with a smile, and just so open. And so yeah, I mean,
Thank you.
I haven't been in the business for 36 years without mentors, that's for sure. And people,
Wow.
and I think Rihanna and I've talked about this, our tribe, right? Of people that you just
Sure.
call in those times. And,
Absolutely.
and you may not be talking every day, right? You may not have
Sure.
set mentor. And I think that's where it gets really kind of
I agree.
difficult. It's just, it happens when needed. And it
Sure.
happens when you see them, and then you kind of pick up, just like friends that you might have had when you were in elementary school or college. You might talk once a year, but it's all good. You know what I
It's
mean?
all good.
Yeah.
You bring up a really great point that it's not a structured relationship. It's not, hey, Amy, will you be my mentor? Yes, I'll be your mentor.
I'll be
And
your
let's
mentor.
put some time on the calendar, right?
Yeah.
And we meet once. It does not have to be that way. And that's where I think people sometimes feel overwhelmed by finding a mentor and connecting with a mentor, because they think it has to be this structured and formal relationship, and it doesn't have to be.
No.
And of course that's the message I'm trying to send. um it feels good to know that when you saw me, you felt warmth too,
Yeah. Yeah.
because I was very nervous. I was
I
very,
didn't
very
see
nervous
that.
that day. Wow. Okay, that's
I
so
didn't see
interesting.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you didn't see it. Well, that's good to know, and I'm really glad that we had the
Yeah.
opportunity to connect that day, and that
Yeah.
we've had this long lasting relationship. And with Rhiannon as well. I mean, she's unofficially
Oh
a
yeah.
mentor to me as well. And I think
Yeah.
to all of
Sure.
us ladies,
All of us.
um,
Yeah.
yeah, starting the TWMB, and just understanding the importance of, empowering each other as women. It's a passion that I could see in her way back when, I mean, even with her mom, right? Back in the day, I
Sure.
could see it. So she carried that, and her legacy is so important. And I want to make sure that this mentorship, really kind of jump starts itself in 2026. And I so appreciate, you sitting down with me to talk about how we have this, informal relationship that I
Yeah.
call mentorship.
Yeah.
Um, So anything else, Amy, that you want to share about mentorship, your personal mentorship experiences?
Yeah, sure. I guess I go back to it's just the daily life for me. I think about, gosh, I haven't talked to that person in a while. I hope they're doing okay. You know what I mean? And you
Sure.
reach out, and that may just be a real informal relationship, but I
Sure.
try to. It's interesting. I am in a newer job now, and my current employer, we've talked about the fact that my personal life and my work life are like this. And
Sure.
so when I go out in the evenings, it's usually with people in the mortgage industry, but we also live in a city where there's so much of us here, right,
Of
in Dallas.
course. Yep.
And I think Houston's like that too. And so, when I hear things that you're just, so nice things that you've said about me, I go, gosh, I just try to make that my everyday, and that brings people
Oh,
in, and then you become mentors. So
yeah.
I guess to your point, um, I don't want it to feel so structured, because I know we've tried
Sure.
that, because
Yeah.
this is really a friendship, and I'm
Absolutely.
honored that
Yeah.
that you call it a mentorship. And I would hope if you ever needed anything, you would raise your hand. And I think that's the key to this
Absolutely.
discussion with all of you sitting in this room is, don't feel shy. Raise your hand and just say you want to go to lunch or coffee. Doesn't have to be formal, because next thing you know, you have a new friend too. That's
Oh, I love
probably,
that. I
yeah,
love that.
that's
It's a
probably the
mentorship friendship.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's crazy. People always joke about, gosh, do you really want to retire one day? And I'm like, well, yeah, I do, but that doesn't mean that I'm going to stop being friends, because I've
Yeah.
I've done this. I've overlapped it.
You've
Does that
overlapped.
make sense?
That
Yeah.
makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
And I think I'm doing that too. I don't know if I
Yeah.
was putting those two things together,
Huh.
but I do that as well.
Yeah.
So really, mentorship is about showing up, being honest, and being willing to work alongside someone,
Yeah.
and to navigate life with that. And it doesn't have to be professional all the time. Like you said, we're friends, so it can be personal as well.
Sure.
So that's what we're building here at the TWMB. Connection, growth, and women championing other women. If you're a part of the TWMB, MBA as well on the larger scale, we're encouraging mentorship for 2026. We're trying to lean in, and if you need a mentor, for the larger audience watching this video, if you need a mentor, please reach out to myself or Amy, Rhiannon Boland, anybody on our committee. Come to our events. This is a great way to foster mentorship and friendship. Like you said, Amy, I love that. It's not always mentorship. It turns
Yeah.
out to be friendship.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I really, really appreciate your time today, Amy.